In the middle of tremendous darkness and personal tragedy, false lights are trying to guide us, and they can bring shipwreck. We must be focused on God's pathways and His light in the storms of life. Christ is the light of navigation. Hello, and welcome to the Light of Navigation and the God Stories. My name is Marguerite Lever Woodall, and I'm an author, speaker, and your host. I write short stories about real-life supernatural encounters with God, and I love to explore what it is, what it means to follow God's pathways. In this 21st episode of the God Stories, called God and the Coat of Light, there's surprising revelation about God's provisions, even in the little things. The follow-through He can bring is incredible. I love it when God adds an extra touch to someone's life story, even if it's years later. Come and join me in the adventures of the God Stories and experience the encounters with the goodness of God, even in the middle of our life storms. And why do you worry about clothing? Observe how the lilies of the field grow. They do not toil, nor do they spin. Yet I say to you that not even Solomon, in all his glory, clothed himself like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, will He not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Matthew 6:28 through 30. I'm one of those people who has never won anything spontaneously in my life. You know what I mean? You're the one who never wins any kind of trophy, lottery, or prize, large or small. You're the one who never takes an award with any company or prize at any Christmas party or special event. You're that one person who feels like luck is a foreign concept. The only prize I ever won was a small cookie jar at the age of 9 at a small town park fair. I gave it to my mother, of course, and bless her heart, she hung on to it for decades. You know how mothers are. I still remember seeing it sitting on the kitchen counter for decades, until it looked like it would eventually fall apart. My former husband was a betting man. I guess you could say it was a side hobby for him. His betting was never on a large scale, and was more of a social icebreaker for him, more than anything else. What floored me was the fact that he rarely lost a bet. He'd win his bets almost 100% of the time, and that's no exaggeration. I married him because he was everything I wasn't: outgoing, winning, and charismatic. If we ran out of groceries, Randy would be betting on a pool game at the local tavern for the needed money. He was a champion-level pool player. Without fail, he would bring home substantial winnings to buy the necessary groceries. I've also looked on in wonder, as another family member I know rarely loses at the local casino either. Years later, as a Christian, I've come to realize that luck or chance has no place in my theology or in my life. I came to understand that pursuing Lady Luck through her various avenues of casinos, lottery, betting, etc., was nothing less than worshiping at the altar of La Fortuna. La Fortuna was the female goddess of good fortune or luck. This has an ancient history dating back to Roman times and beyond. She appears in other cultures under different names as well. I once heard a Christian made a comment that I'll never forget because it really struck me. It struck me because it was a spoken truth. They remarked that casinos were, for all intents and purposes, temples. Temples of the goddess La Fortuna, temples that promised fortune. The antithesis of Lady Luck is God and His provision, which is promised often in the scriptures. Financial prosperity has not been a significant aspect of my life. I've chosen the career path of a florist, and it's historically been a profession that has never paid well. If you have good skills, you earn a better income than minimum wage, yet not enough to save much for a rainy day. Living month to month is typical unless you own your own florist shop, and that was just not meant to be for me. And don't get me wrong, I've loved being a florist and designer. Many people work jobs that they hate. I didn't. It's what God has called me and gifted me to do in the daily arena of life. I've been happy and enjoyed every moment for over 45 years. Working the vocation that I'm gifted in has been worth all the financial hardship over the years, and I wouldn't change a thing. For the last 20 years, I've worked for a grocery store chain instead of independent floral shops as I used to. In 2009, I was asked by my employer to attend a yearly regional supermarket show for grocers. This is where supermarket directors and their corporate staff would tour different vendors' booths to view the market's latest innovations and products available for grocery store chains. It was a big event. The sponsor of the event, AWG, Associated Wholesale Grocers, was the third largest supplier for supermarket store chains in the nation. For most of the day, everyone walked around visiting different vendors' booths, making connections, and ordering products for their company's various departments, and for the upcoming holidays. During the show, AWG announces the recipients of 2 awards, regional and corporate. They're given out annually to individual grocery store departments. The first encompasses the various grocery store chains located in their designated tri-state areas. The second award spans all 8 regional divisions of AWG on a national level and is known as the Corporate Award. Halfway through the day's events, I was informed that I was being given both for merchandising excellence in the floral department I was managing. Only one other florist from my employer had won both awards simultaneously in the company's 40-year history. I was now the second. I'd never been more excited in my life. I remember running outside immediately to call my family. I was beside myself with joy. Nothing had ever happened to me like this before. Here I was, someone who had absolutely no winning history except for a cheap cookie jar, and I'd been chosen for not 1, but 2 major awards as a floral manager. The joy I felt was beyond description and off the charts. There are very few awards or honors given in this life that hold value. For me, this was one of them. Being honored by others or appreciated means a great deal to us if we're honest. For me, feeling honored was a rare experience. The opposite of being honored is to be disgraced or criticized. With my history as a recipient of verbal critical abuse from a parent, being honored never happened. All I'd ever known was the disgrace that critical remarks from this parent had left me with. In retrospect, the honor the awards brought impacted me more deeply than most because of this. When the weekend's events concluded, I was informed that I would be attending a corporate awards banquet later that week to accept the AWG awards. As I looked forward to the event, I realized I had nothing special to wear for such a significant and special occasion. This was a prestigious event, and a more formal attire was important. Here I was, barely scraping by financially, and had no appropriate clothing to wear to receive the awards. I was in a pickle. In desperation, I prayed with everything I had and asked God to provide something for me to wear. I'd already checked several clothing stores, and none had evening wear within my financial means. Nothing I came across looked appropriate for an awards banquet. It's funny how desperation can lead you to do strange things. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? I found myself pulling into the parking lot of the local Goodwill store as a last resort. What have I got to lose? Maybe, just maybe, there's something there I could wear, and it wouldn't cost me more than the $12 I had left in my pocket, I thought. "20 minutes later, as I rifled through the clothing racks, I held up a stunning, professionally tailored, black evening jacket for a woman. The tailoring was magnificent, with wide bands of tasteful patterned gold and black beading around its cuffs and down its lapels. It shined. It reflected the room's light around it. It was sparkly. I love sparkly. I also found a dress shirt to match it. God's presence surrounded me as I stared at it in shock. It was a perfect fit. It had been misplaced in the casual clothing section of the store instead of the formal one. I knew instantly that this evening jacket had to have been worth well over $150, if not more, in a regular clothing store. And it was the kind of jacket that would have been found in the formal and evening wear section of an upscale department store. The price tag was $12. As I marveled at such a God-led find, I then noticed the jacket's clothing label, and it read Psalm 104. And with an additional statement beneath it that also said, "Clothed with light as a garment." This psalm in the scriptures, Psalm 104, verse 2, speaks of God's majesty and light. O Lord, my God, you are clothed with splendor and majesty. He wraps himself in light as with a garment. The label on the jacket glorified God, the God of light. And here it was, God's provision for my need. A coat of light just for me. Sometimes I feel like the famous radio personality Paul Harvey from yesteryear. His famous quote, "And here's the rest of the story," comes to mind. That being said, I have an addendum, an addition to this story. 16 years later, and after my retirement as a florist with this grocery store company, God added a finishing touch to my life journey here. The company had changed hands, and I had returned to work part-time as a floral designer rather than a manager. The irony wasn't lost on me that after 19 years with this company, I'd been assigned once again to the same floral shop where I'd been given the 2 floral merchandising awards years before. I deeply sensed that things had come full circle somehow. The new owners began remodeling several of the stores in our store chain, and our location was next on their agenda. The decorative gondola, or overhead canopy, that graced the floral department above was being removed. and something else would take its place. The central piece of the canopy above was a beautiful circular stained glass piece that was nearly 2 feet in diameter. The floral motif on it reminded me of Italian Renaissance period decor. I'd been told that the stained glass circle would be salvaged. Some employees had voiced a desire to be given the stained glass piece. I didn't give it much consideration. I had no emotional attachment to it, or so I thought. Indeed, I wondered why it was suddenly being so coveted by everyone. As I returned from a work break, I found the store management in a conversation with the personnel who would be taking down the gondola the next day. Passing by them, the manager asked me if I would like to be given the stained glass circle. As I looked at the construction worker, I replied, "Well, yes, I opened this shop years ago and received 2 merchandising awards because of it." "Then it surely belongs to you," he said. The manager standing with us smiled from ear to ear and replied, "Make it so." God's Spirit lovingly embraced me immediately after that manager spoke. I was being moved emotionally by the revelation I hadn't understood before and the symbolism behind being given the stained glass decor. The Lord wanted me to receive something I hadn't given any thought about, and for a reason only He and I understood. It was a symbol of the honor I'd received from the 2 awards I was given years ago, awards that I never dreamed I would have, and the culmination of the many years to achieve something meaningful and lasting. It was not only the remembrance of a flower shop that I had loved working in and taking care of, but also more than anything, the symbol of a career that God gave me and one that I flourished in because of Him. Holding back the tears as I walked away, I heard God clearly say, "I honor those who honor me." 1 Samuel 2, verse 30. Thank you for taking time once again to listen to my story. If this podcast encourages someone you know who needs to know that God does honor our commitment to Him and in loving ways, pass it on. Your comments are valued and subscribing is also appreciated. In episode 22 of the God Stories titled God and the Last Laugh, let's explore what laughter can do and how God will use it. He will have the last laugh.